Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back in to the garage. In today's video, I'm going to be covering what I believe is the #1 most important preventative maintenance step you can take in the ownership of your 3rd generation 4Runner, and that is the replacement of the lower ball joints. Now these guys are unfortunately known for their failure, and when it does fail, it can cause catastrophic damage to both the vehicle and, God forbid, you or your passengers. A simple online search will provide evidence of images and videos that show just how bad it is when this fails. Now, my personal vehicle, it was approaching 250,000 miles when I decided it was far past time. I felt like I was pushing it and I needed to get it done. Now, there are some aftermarket options available that you can buy, but I decided that the best option for me was to go with the OEM Toyota replacement part. In my opinion, the OEM part had gotten me almost 250,000 miles, and if I can replace it and get at least 200 more, then I'll be a happy camper. Now in this video, I hope you guys will leave with the confidence and the ability to do this job on your own, not hire it out and save some money. With the proper planning and tools, time and patience, you too will be able to do this and get back on the road safely for many, many miles to come. Now, as always, I really appreciate you guys. The likes and the subscriptions mean a lot to me, but your comments mean a lot as well because it lets me know that these videos help you, and if I'm helping you, then that's what matters. So please let me know how this goes on your 4Runner and on your job. Let me know if you encountered any hiccups or if there's anything that you found helpful in this video. I highly recommend go ahead and do this preventatively. Don't wait. Save up the money, save up the time, spend it and get it done. You're going to feel a lot better about it. And most importantly, you're going to be at peace of mind on the road and avoid a potential catastrophic issue happening. So as always, I appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for tuning in and watching. And let's get to the job. Catch you next time.
Well, it's a beautiful day for some automobile service, guys. So let's go over some of the tools that you're going to need. This is going to be the most important of the tools that you need. And obviously, shop rags, cleaners, and things of that degree, you probably want to have around for a job like this. As you can see, we have both of the lower ball joints here. This is an OEM replacement for 3330-39585. And then we have for 3340-39465. Now, I ordered these OEM replacements. They came with replacement brand new castle nuts along with a Cotter pin here for each lower ball joint. I grabbed an additional pack of Cotter pins, and you'll see why later on in the video. I have my magnetic trays. I actually rented these tie rod pullers from my local parts supply store. Instead of getting an entire front end service kit, we only need these two pullers here, so I only rented those two today. Over here we've got 8 bolts. We went with the bolt flange style. There's actually 2 different types of bolts here for this application. You'll see this if you cross-reference my video or research doing this job on your own. There's bolts with washers and then the flange style bolt. This is the part number for the flange bolt that I'm going with, and that's what I've selected. We got 8 of those. We have the Loctite Threadlocker Blue 242, which we're going to place on those bolts. And then we have an assortment here of wrenches between 3/8, 1/2 inch, and torque. Mostly what you're going to need is the 14, 19, 21, and 24 sockets. So this is what you're going to need for the most part to complete this job, aside from what we get ourselves into. So let's get rolling. In preparation of jacking the vehicle up, we have placed wheel chocks behind each rear tire. All right, so as you can see, first thing we're doing here is we are loosening the lug nuts. Shout out to the tire iron gang. Still rolling the manual way. We're just gonna make sure we have all 6 here loose before we jack the vehicle up. All right, we've got a good location here for our jack, and we're ready to get this thing in the air. All right, with the tire now off of the ground, there's a couple of different ways you can inspect the lower ball joint, and this is something that you should be doing. Most likely you can do it every oil change, every 10,000 miles. You know, when these vehicles get up in age, that's what causes all of us owners to have that concern where we do not want that catastrophic failure. So really working this into your maintenance check could bring you some peace of mind as to potentially finding the right time to change your lower ball joint and hopefully avoiding that catastrophic failure. So as you can see, with the tire off the ground, what we can do is we can take a pry bar, and with the pry bar up against that back bolt head, right back there, hopefully you can see it. Let me adjust my camera here. There we go. So with the pry bar back there against that back bolt head, you can pry down. And as you can see right here, there's no movement on this ball joint. So to me, this looks like this ball joint is still operable and still good. So the other test that you can run here is you can take a shovel when the tire is off the ground and place the shovel underneath the tire and then pry up on that tire. If you see that lower ball joint start to have any excessive movement, that means that it's definitely bad and it's time to replace it. In this case, as you guys could see with the pry bar, this one still looks like it's okay, but it is definitely showing signs of its age, so we're gonna go ahead and replace it and just get that peace of mind. Before we get cooking here, I wanted to show you guys an up close of this lower ball joint so you know proportionally how it is located on your 3rd gen 4Runner. So this is our lower ball joint, and this would be the front of the vehicle, and it runs, as you can see, to the back of the vehicle. And this is the other portion of the lower ball joint. All right, so our first step is we're gonna loosen these 14mm bolts. There's 4 of them that hold our tie rod in place. We're gonna crack these loose. We do not want to loosen these and take them all the way out. Just wanna get them loose and keep them in there loose. All right, we've got these 2 loosened up. We're gonna go to the back here. Number 3's done. All right. We have successfully gotten all 4 of these 14mm bolts loosened up. Definitely took a little bit of effort here, but no worse for the wear, and we're on to our next step. Okay, next step we're gonna come over here to the tie rod arm, and you'll find this castle nut with this cotter pin, and you want to remove this cotter pin out. So this is why, referencing back to the opening of the video, this is why I bought additional cotter pins, is because you don't want to reuse these, and when you buy the lower ball joints, they don't have replacement cotter pins for the tie rod arm, so make sure to get them. I think the one that is going to replace this one for me is the 2" by 1/8" cotter pin. There we go. And we're just working this free. I'm using needle nose pliers. You can use dikes or wire cutters or whatever you prefer. All right, this castle nut here is a 19mm. And what we want to do here is break this one free, get it loose. There we go. All right, I'm going to get this out the rest of the way here. Now that we have this off, what we want to do is turn this castle nut around to where it's facing down, and you want to rethread it back onto this stud here. There we go. And we're going to rethread that back onto the stud where it sits flush at the top right there. And that's going to be where we use our puller. All right, on to the next one here. Okay, so we're down here now at the lower castle nut. So we're going to basically do the same thing we just did on the tie rod. And we're going to start by taking our cotter pin out. All right, now with the cotter pin out, we're going to go ahead and loosen this castle nut. And we're going to flip the castle nut around, doing the same thing we did before, and thread it back up to be flush right there with the stud. All right, so here's where we're at. We have actually gotten the two pullers rented from the auto parts store, and the smaller puller, which is actually more intended for this application, does not work. So I have angled this larger puller here, and I think we might be able to get it to work. So we're going to try this and see if we can't get this to pop free. And this is a 19 millimeter on the puller. I'm going to keep your hands free here and be prepared for a bit of a bang. All right, well, not the bang I was expecting, but it did come free, and that's a big victory. So there we go. All right, now something to keep in mind, your tie rod arm is the only thing that's keeping this in place here. So now that your tie rod arm is loose, your assembly is free to sway left and right. So keep that in mind. All right, now with the tie rod disconnected, we're able to move and rotate this, which allows us to get a better angle here, get the puller in. Now, since we're replacing the lower ball joint, I'm not too concerned with saving that gasketing or being too extremely careful. Although at this angle, now that you've gotten this done, I mean, it's super easy. So we're gonna screw this in here on the puller until we hit that stud. It's nice and tight there now. And again, that's a 19. And we're gonna get it and try to break it free here. There we go. And as you can see, what happened here is this broke free, and now it's resting on this castle nut. So we do have weight resting on this nut. So before we take this off, we're gonna have to relieve that tension and relieve that weight. All right, so as we said, there is tension here on this nut. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna position the jack to jack up this lower control arm here and relieve that tension on that nut. All right, as you can see here with just a couple of pumps, we've relieved the tension on that castle nut. Now that we've done that, we're gonna go ahead and remove the 14mm bolts holding in the lower ball joint. All right, now that we have the tension relieved here on the lower control arm and that castle nut, we can go ahead and take the lower castle nut off. And now with that off, we are going to slowly remove the jack here from underneath, and keep an eye here on your spindle. Just want to make sure that it doesn't do anything crazy. We have tied it up top just to make sure. All right, there we go. All right, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna use our jack here in a 2x4 and slowly lift this hub assembly up to relieve pressure on the backside so that we can remove the lower ball joint easier. Helps if you have a hand doing this. A little bit more. All right, let's hold right there and see what we look like. All right, now that we have the front jacked up, we're able to remove the lower ball joint. And there we go. All that work, and that's what we're aiming to get out. So next steps here is we're gonna clean all of these surfaces up extremely good. We'll show you what that looks like, but let's compare the old and the new. All right, quick little review for you guys to see old versus new, what we took out and what we're putting in. I did a little bit of just testing here on the lower ball joint by hand, just moving this ball joint around. And honestly, it doesn't seem like it's bad to me at this point. But, you know, feedback from 4Runner owners in this generation, and even seeing some things with the Sequoias and other vehicles where it has this similar lower ball joint design, is that there's no real indication of failure other than a slight clunking noise until it fails. And when it fails, you're in for a lot of trouble, losing a wheel, and you just don't want to be in that situation. It's not a safe situation to be in. So anyway, here's our brand new part, and this is for the passenger side. It's really easy, just kind of match it up. Should be easy to tell which one goes on which, and they are actually marked HR and HL. This would be indicating from when you're inside the vehicle, so passenger side would be right and driver side would be left. So I want to show you guys a comparison of the old versus the new bolts, and these old bolts, as you can see, definitely corroded, rusted, and man, happy I made the decision to go ahead and do this now at 249,000 miles. So definitely worth the peace of mind here. So here's the surface at which the lower ball joint, the lower control arm, I would say, of the surface at which the lower ball joint sits on. So we're gonna clean that up. We're gonna clean this all up and get it looking better, spray it down with some brake cleaner, brush it off. We've got our surfaces cleaned off. Everything looks really good, and now we've got our new ball joint, lower ball joint, that's going to go back in. And we want to put it back in the same orientation at which we took it out. we go. All right. Now that that's in, we can thread our new castle nut that came with the lower ball joint on. And we're just going to finger tighten it here in place. Now what we want to do is we want to lower this back down, this hub assembly back down on top of the ball joint and line it back up as it was before, which should be pretty easy to do. You just need to get it back in place. Certainly helps if you have a helper like I do, lowering the jack. What we've got is on the inside of this lower ball joint, there's almost these dowel pins that stick out that help you seat it appropriately on the side that's up against the rotor, if you will. And so that's what we're looking at getting lined up appropriately here. All right, lower me some more. I think we can go ahead and take it out all the way. All right, so what has happened here is that with our spindle free here, it's still not, essentially we're not seating. So what we have to do is raise this lower control arm up a little bit to get it to seat in so that we can bolt everything back up together. So we're gonna raise it little by little here until we marry the two systems together. That's it right there, I think. Hold on one second. Let's go about another half a pump. That's great. A little bit more. Yep, that's perfect. So that worked. It was just floating. These two were floating and not touching or marrying. And what we did is by raising this up, you can feel it. And you'll be confident if you do this on your own vehicle, you can feel where this lower ball joint essentially like locks into place with those dowel pins, which are again on the back side facing the rotor. And then here, it's really easy to look above and see where you're lining up on your bolt, on the holes where your threads are for your bolt. So this is perfect. And next thing we need to do is get these bolts put in. All right, here's our new bolts that we have. We've got 4 new bolts to put on this side. And again, we're gonna be using Loctite Threadlocker, the blue 242. So we'll apply some Threadlocker here on the bolt. One reason for doing this, you want to make sure to do this, is because these lower ball joint bolts on 3rd gen owners have reported that part of the failure that they've experienced is actually some of these bolts backing out. So you really don't want that to happen to you. So put a little Loctite in there. And what we're going to do here is just finger thread these bolts in at first. That way we don't have to worry about any cross-threading issues. At this point, you can still rotate your assembly here if you need to get a better angle. All right, so these two are done. We're going to rotate and we're going to do the other two. All right, now that we've threaded these in by hand, I'm going to snug them up here. We're not going to torque them down just yet. Their torque spec is 59 foot-pounds, but I am going to just just get them snugged up here. All right, now that they're snugged up, we're going to go ahead and tighten this castle nut up a little bit and snug it up as well. All right, same thing on that castle nut there. I'm just snugging it up and obviously not torquing it down at this point. All right, now that we have this all accomplished and done, we're going to go ahead and attach the tie rod arm. All right, so we're back here to get our tie rod attached into our lower ball joint. Our lower ball joint is snugged up now, and you might have to move this around to be a little bit firm with it, but as you can see, you can pop it right in there. And we're going to get our castle nut started, threading it here on the stud. It's a little funky. All right, there we go. Snug that up. Now that we have the tie rod snugged on there, we've got the lower control arm castle nut on and the 14mm bolts. We should be good to remove this jack. All right, we're ready to torque our lower castle nut. This spec is 105 foot-pounds. All right, now that we have torqued it down to 105 foot-pounds, we want to look and see where we're going to line up the hole in the stud for the cotter pin. And mine actually turned out to be perfect. So you can't beat that. So it doesn't really matter which way you go in. I'm going to push it in here from the back side towards the front. And we're going to peel that cotter pin around that castle nut. And there we go. We're torqued down. All right, we're at the tie rod arm here, the castle nut, and we're going to torque this down at 67 foot-pounds. All right, same thing here. We're going to look for the hole for the cotter pin, and it's actually right there. Looks like we need to go just a little bit further there to get it lined up. All right, we've got our holes lined up, and we're putting our cotter pin in here from the back, and we're gonna round it off just like that. All right, there we go. So we've got this torqued to 67 foot-pounds, the lower to 105. Now we're going to torque down our 14mm bolts. All right, we're going to torque these 14mm bolts down to 59 foot-pounds of torque, and you probably want to do this in a crisscross pattern. So we're going to start here and work our way around. All right, so we've got our lug nuts just snugged up here to the rotor, but we're going to go ahead and torque these down. There's a few different things in the specs about this, but we're going to go to 85 foot-pounds here. All right, guys, that does it. Successfully completed replaced lower ball joint on the passenger side of my 2004 Runner. Now, I still have to do the driver's side today, but I'm not going to take you through the steps of the driver's side on video because it's the exact same steps. Rinse and repeat. What you saw in this video will take you through the proper steps to do both sides, whether you start on the driver or the passenger. You'll get them both done. Now, my 2004 Runner has 249,000 miles on it currently. I'm the second owner, and when I purchased this, it had 152,000 miles on it. I don't think the original owner took the time to change the lower ball joints in the first 152,000 miles. So I feel pretty blessed to be able to have gotten 249,000 miles without experiencing some sort of catastrophic failure like I've seen on many of these forums and websites with fellow third-gen owners. I hope seeing these steps, you guys can be able to understand that with the proper tools and planning, you too can get this job done for a fraction of the cost that you would have it done if paying someone else. Take the time, do this as a preventative maintenance step, especially if you have high mileage. Test your ball joints like we showed you earlier in the video. And if you do start to see some signs of wear and tear and you know it's been on your vehicle for a long amount of miles, go ahead, replace it, and have that peace of mind as you continue to travel on the road. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully you learned something, and let me know in the comments below how you guys did on your job. Appreciate you tuning in. Remember to like, subscribe, leave me a comment. Till next time.